City of Helotes Economic Development Corporation. Board of Directors meeting. We're going to open, this is the open session, and we're going to start with public comments. Did we have any? Okay. Then we're going to move on to the consent agenda items. We have approval of the minutes, the monthly revenue and expenditure report, and approval of a resolution. Does anyone have any questions on any of these items? If not, we will vote on them as a whole. Any questions?
I just wanted to make the comment about the minutes that were enclosed were incorrect, or the ones in mine were.
Oh.
And we were given the corrected ones just a little while ago, in case y'all didn't notice.
Did everyone have a chance? So the minutes that were in the packet, I just happened to note that myself, as the electronic one that I had received was different, but inadvertently was the wrong date. So if anyone would like to have a chance to thumb through those, okay, let's give everyone just a couple of minutes to run through the ones that were placed on the dais, and they were dated May 13th rather than April. Somehow April slipped in there. So we'll give everyone a couple of minutes.
Madam President, can I ask a question?
Yes?
Is that the only change? The date?
No,
Oh,
it was
okay.
the total wrong set of minutes.
Oh, okay.
So you might want to take a minute to look. And I will say quickly that the, on item number 6 and actually 7, but all of the minutes for item number 6 are reflected in the red line that we received that we'll be discussing today. So you probably could skip reading all of that lengthiness, correct? For the most part, and those comments were imported into the red line that we're working off of today. Yes, sir.
Could I ask you a question on
Certainly.
the resolution, item 4?
Yes, you might pose your questions to the gentleman here. Rick and Glenn would be able to answer them better than I.
Okay, I assume this is primarily referring to the portion of the C of O's that the city's gonna do for the pedestrian bridge and the linear park with the $500,000 estimation of debt.
That's correct.
That has no involvement, no money from that to go to the city sewer and water project.
We included the water and sewer project under number 1 in that resolution because y'all have had engineering costs associated with that project. And the rest of 2 through 7 would deal with the Helotes Creek Linear Park project. The board has not, at this point, stated that they are pursuing reimbursement for the engineering for L&B through the water and sewer, except through the pro rata refunds and the impact fee refunds that the city will receive. So that's why we put in 500,000 rather than including the 2.9 million for the water and sewer as well.
Right.
So the EDC should expect to receive pro rata and impact fee credits back to you to cover the $450,000 that y'all pledged for C of O's, or that y'all pledged to the city for its 2002 C of O's, out of that, not out of this reimbursing resolution.
Right.
Answer your question? Okay. any other questions? Everybody okay to, ask for a motion on, the consent items then, 2 through 4?
Madam President, I make a motion, we approve consent agenda items 2 through 4 as written.
I'll second it.
All right, if there's no other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda items are passed unanimously. Okay, we're gonna move on to item number 5, the first of the individual consideration items.
President Garner,
Yes,
would you entertain moving 13A?
correct, yes, please. We have the, L&B here to talk to us with a report on the water and sewer project design project. And then we'll let you go, cause I'm sure you have other things to do today.
Okay, I'm going to be doing the status report, I guess, on sewer line on Highway 16. Right now, the project's a little bit stalled, due to CPS. CPS still has to locate exactly where their 6-inch polyethylene gas line is for us to continue with our geotech and finish the drawings to see if we need any adjustments to our alignments that we have already complete. Plans are nearly done. Once we get this information, we make any adjustments and finish the plans in accordance with what the city has preferred on their designs, whether that be, going around trees or doing open cuts where we need to and a number of other things. In other words, that's our preferred design will be submitted to SAWS, and we will still have to do some geotech borings once we find out where the gas line is, and maybe some potholing for cable and in highly congested areas for utilities. We went through an issue with finding a cave. I think that's basically been resolved. We're waiting for a final report from Robert Kistner, which should be come out any day. That'll direct us on how to protect that opening. It's a potential recharge feature to the aquifer, even though it's right outside the aquifer. And that report will be submitted to the TCQ with the required documentation. That's not gonna hold up the approval process. I guess once we get the preferred plans in the way, as a 95%, we'll submit it to SAWS. We'll also be submitting a copy to TxDOT, and they'll be beginning to be again their review, and that's where we can facilitate approvals at that point, because in our meeting with TxDOT in April 8th, we learned that the management staff was not too comfortable with our designs regarding the trees, and in other words, going around the trees or doing open cut and a couple of other things. So we still have to finish with trying to meet with them on that while SAWS is reviewing their portion. Then once SAWS is completed and approved the drawings, they have to electronically apply with TxDOT for a utility installation request. And then we would have presented the drawings to TxDOT already to, look at them initially, and then they'll see SAWS approval. Of course, that TxDOT will have their own comments. And then after that, we, get a final set approved and get our, okay with the drawings. The timeline on this is, hopefully, CPS is going to be out there to install some more tracer wire. They didn't have any tracer wire from several stations along our alignment. What they do is they set up stations where the wire goes out to the polyethylene line, and they do resistivity studies along the line to find out, where it's located. So they need to repair one that wasn't working, and they have to install 4 more. They never had those installed, so we really can't confirm where it is. We found out that the situation was occurring when, we sent out our geotech crews to do the soil sampling for construction, for future construction, so we'll have a soils report, and, they couldn't find anything. They just found the little tracer wire just down low here next to the Exxon station, and weren't sure where everything was later on. This should have been done before, not at this point. I know that comment is probably coming, but, that's can be only placed on the engineers, on us, so I apologize for that. We're looking at another month for them to do that or so. It won't take us long to adjust our drawings and start disseminating plans to saws. It's probably take them a month and a half or so, and TxDOT, probably another few weeks after that. So we're looking at 2 to 3 months, 4 months then for final set of drawings to be completed. We still have to do some potholing, and still have to do geotech, but that doesn't take too long. And then develop specifications won't take that long either. But the idea is to complete the drawings as soon as we can and get it to both TxDOT and SAWS to start that review process. And when there's a disagreement, to keep communication open, especially with TxDOT. I think I can communicate with SAWS pretty well and facilitate that, but maybe some city staff can assist with your connections with TxDOT to ask them how it's going, and when there's a meeting, we need to have a meeting to identify whatever they have issues with right away, and get that taken care of. So that's all I have. We're looking at 4 to 5 months to complete everything, but right now we've found out that we needed to really identify exactly where that gas line was based on our request to go do geotech sampling just for construction purposes, just to document the soils or what strata is down right beneath where we have to excavate.
So-
That's all I have.
If you were to project in the best case, well, how many,
Hopefully,
Start
4 to 5 months.
construction?
Start construction, we'd have to go out to bid, that at least 2 weeks, and so hopefully we can advertise before the end of the year.
okay? Any questions?
So it looks like, we're talking about FY16 for us as far as the budget year and the pay year that goes before we'd, actually being reimbursing or doing any kind of, okay,
For construction purposes,
yeah,
yeah, I think so. I mean, your fiscal year ends September 30th, correct?
30, yeah,
September
1st of
30th,
October.
1st, so.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we definitely would be looking at that, because we have to advertise for bid and review the bids, and,
Yeah.
it takes 3 to 4 weeks to do that.
Okay.
Check on the qualifications of the bidders, et cetera.
Okay.
I can't think of anything else,
Can't
but
see the light behind him outside,
pretty well
reminds me.
touched on just about all of it.
Bert has a question?
Julian? The cave thing still scares me a little bit. Is there just one cave or is there 2?
Okay, well, I think what Rava had stated to us, and we're still waiting for the final report, is that there's a cave right opposite the side of 16. And that.
You mean on the other side of the highway?
Yeah, and they were once connected, but when they built the road back then, they just divorced the two, separated them. So what they tell me is that the report will show that there's no habitat, environment for any species in this cave. They've inspected the cave, they went there with a camera, standpoint. What we're a little bit concerned about is what TCEQ is gonna tell us. And how, is that a recharge feature? Probably, it's up on the bluff a little bit, so I don't see how that would be. But, that'll have to be submitted because we're in this sensitive area to TCEQ. We'll have to facilitate that. We don't really need that per se to, I mean, I think that it's nice to have that, approval, but we can go along with the review processes once we get our plans, up to a point of 95%. And we can go visit TCEQ for their final.
When do you think TCEQ will give their final approval?
Well, that's.
Will it be within this 4 to 5 month time period, hopefully?
We will make that happen. I'm pretty sure we can do that.
Okay, and then I had one other question.
Sure.
There's no Gray Forest, gas lines running over there?
Yes, there is. There was a
But
2-inch
you've identified
line.
where they're at? Or they've told you, because remember with the Walmart, they had a big issue over there with
Yeah,
theirs.
I just looked at that email. There's a 2-inch line that's outside, I understand, the right of way. And it comes into the subdivision and connects there. It's just a short distance.
Okay,
So I don't know if that's gonna be a problem. And there's no other Gray Forest line, I don't think, that's within the construction or project limits.
okay, so you are aware that there's a Gray
Yeah,
Forest?
there is one there, but it's not, it's only a few hundred feet, and it just dead ends. I can forward that to you when you
Sorry,
spoke
one-
that.
No problem, go ahead.
One more question popped in my head. With this, this is for, I guess for you guys, with this 4 to 5 month period that we're gonna have to wait, hopefully, it's not gonna be longer than that, how's this gonna affect our C of Os that city council approved?
We won't receive the C of O money until the end of August anyway. So we'll receive the money really at the time that they should be done with the plans.
So we're good?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you, Julian.
Thanks.
Okay, we're back to item number 5. This is a discussion, direction, and/or appropriate action on a policy prescribing procedures for the placement of agenda items by EDC directors onto the EDC Board of Directors meeting agenda. And in your packet, staff provided the city council policy that was approved by city council and adopted on May 28th. I believe that was their last, just recent meeting. I met with staff yesterday, and just to get us started at least, if you go to this page 14, it's a sheet that has 13 and 14. The last 2 paragraphs, I believe, is what staff was thinking would be the template for this, suggesting that we use what city council has adopted. There may be some little tweaks to make it appropriate for our board, but generally, that's a starting point. I don't know if you all have some other thoughts on that.
May
I can-
may I speak?
Yes,
I have, I'm gonna pass this out. I looked at what we did with the city council and kind of tweaked it, what I think would work for us. Here you go. Pass this to- yeah. Basically, it takes much of the language, but I kind of shortened it a little bit. And I guess the biggest change or difference is, I guess, on the 3rd paragraph, which is the president will review agenda items, which must include supporting data, committee findings, if appropriate, options and recommendations, and approve or disapprove their inclusion based on completeness and or appropriateness. The executive director will be responsible for administering the agenda process. The EDC specialist will be responsible for coordinating all aspects of the agenda process. And then, again, there is, again, the tweak that I thought would be good for this particular board. All agenda items must be submitted to the executive director for placement on the agenda no later than noon, 6 working days prior to the desired EDC meeting date. And I think the 6 days is the same that the city council uses. And then I had 2 different ways that directors could get an agenda item on there. I didn't want it to be prohibitive for directors. My first suggestion would be to contact the president with his or her item for vetting and consultation at least a week before posting date. So then it would be 12 days before the meeting. And the reason, this way, if the director talks to the president, emails or talks and says, hey, I'm thinking of I'd like to get this on the agenda, it's very possible the president and the executive director may have already been discussing whether or not they wanted to put the same item on there, in which case that then the president could take it over and present it, and then can put her name or his name, whoever the president is at the time, along with the director. So that would kind of alleviate then it now again, and then I thought that leaving number B, which would be kind of the way the city council does it, initiate the process by providing an agenda item request form signed by 2 EDC directors. That will be presented to the president for review no later than 2 days before posting date. So basically the 2 directors would have everything put together, given to the president 2 days before posting so that he or she could review. And then it would be able to be put on the agenda in that way. So I thought there would be 2 different ways to be able to do it. You know, like I said, one kind of an easier way, so that, you know, I just believe that it needs to be kind of vetted, that's all. And the president would be the appropriate person to make sure that it's up to par with the executive director, but the president is in charge of the board, so.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
Okay, on item B, the president, let's see, presented to the president for review no later than 2 days. Is that review and approval, or just review? In other words, does the president need to approve it to get on the agenda in item B?
I would think so, yes. And the only thing that would prevent approval would be if there's no backup information, you know, if there's just not appropriate backup information. I don't think it's enough for someone to just say, I want to discuss this and sign their name with no backup information whatsoever.
Right, sure, yeah.
That would be, to me, the only reason that the president could deny it to be on there.
Well, but it just for argument's sake, there's no way to get something on the agenda without the president's approval, whether it's option A or B, right? Either way, the president has to approve it to get on the agenda.
Yes, and that's the way it is with the city. The mayor has to approve it. And we've, you know, if you had been to some of the city council meetings, you would hear the arguments for and against that. Ultimately, someone has to be involved, and you have to have a point person, and it's either the mayor or it's a president. You gotta have somebody to
Right,
look at it.
right, but just for argument's sake, again, let's say, for example, that 6 of us wanted an item on the agenda, and so all 6 of us signed it, took it to the president, and the president said, no, I don't like that idea, I'm not putting it on.
No, well, that's not what this is for.
Well, it's not, it
Well-
needs to be written in that format.
Just hypothetically, the president doesn't like the idea
I
that
just
all
put-
of the other board members want to present, so is there a way to bring an
Well,
item to the
first
agenda?
of all, it would be against the Open Meetings Act for all of us to get together. You'd have to only be
Oh, well,
2
that's
people. Okay?
That was pointed out in the city council
Yeah,
discussion.
it can't be more than 2 people. Well, it could be 3 because a quorum, you know, is 4 in this board. But just for the sake of some, you know, of keeping the Open Meetings Act in mind, it has to be no more than 2. And then I just put, even agenda items not received on a timely basis with appropriate signatures will be processed and posted on the agenda for the second meeting, provided they are complete. So this is, again, if they have proper backup material, they need to be put on the agenda. But again, you can't have all, you know, then you're having a closed meeting outside of this meeting. You have to have an agenda process, and it really can't be more than 2 people, or would be in violation of the Opens Meetings Act.
Right, well, I just offered an idea that there would be a way to get it on the agenda, if the president, in whatever case, was opposed to bringing that agenda item.
I mean, they would, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Not
this
that
same
that would-
discussion we had about the mayor, so.
I mean, I think the legal side of this, and I'm not an attorney, but the legal side is, as long as there's backup material of some form or fashion, you have 2 signatures on there, there would be no reason to deny it. And staff at that point would discuss that with the EDC attorney and essentially force the president's hand to place it on the agenda.
But the one thing that I see on that issue is if you, in the second paragraph under A and B, it says the president, and it goes on, and will approve or disapprove their inclusion based on completeness and or appropriateness. I wonder if it might be better to have a period after completeness and leave off the and or appropriateness, because that's kind of a
Right,
vague
cause that's so
term.
subjective, they could say, well, I think it's inappropriate or whatever.
Yeah, no, the only reason that I agree, I mean, I kind of threw it in just for discussion, but,
Can I jump in on that real quick? Oh, go ahead.
I just had one question about B. 2 days is a very short time to try to put something on unless it was just really urgent business. That's one thing that I think, you know, that's a short term, it's maybe too short. The second thing is, why do you suggest, just because the city council does, 2 members to sign off on whatever the person's suggestion is? Because I had one, I submitted it, I've only submitted one in my time. And it was not rejected, but it was looked at, and it was not appropriate to bring it up at the time. Sometime in the future, I'm gonna submit it again, and we'll talk to the second person, whoever. But why is it necessary for 2 people? They don't have my idea, I do.
no, that's why I had A. That's why I had A here. A is for someone like you who talks to the president, and then the president could be your second person to sign.
Okay,
It wouldn't, yeah, so.
I can accept that,
Yeah,
okay.
and in fact, we can put that in there, you know,
Yeah.
president can be, but it's, you know. to me-
Understand. The 2 days are just too short as far
No,
as
the
I'm
2
concerned.
days is what I meant for the 2 days is for the review, for the president to review it.
Oh, okay.
So
No.
that's really a total of 8 days prior
Yeah.
to, okay, cause I had the same question.
Yeah.
So that becomes 2 days
I
before
put
the
posting
dead-
date, prior to
drop dead date.
posting date of the agenda,
All
right?
right, then I understand it now better.
Yeah.
Posting date of the agenda might not be the right language.
Posting date's fine.
It is? Okay. Well, you guys can help with the wordsmithing on that.
This is again just a suggestion of, you know, I looked at what the city council did, and I remember all of the discussions we had that, and that's how I came up with this. And I agree with, Caleb that and/or appropriateness is vague, but, so we can definitely leave that off.
I'm gonna quickly jump in on that one because I did look up some other, processes and policies. And the terms that were used in this particular one, instead of appropriateness, it was the discussion as to whether it's within the jurisdiction of the board is the way they put it.
Yeah.
Is it appropriate for this board to consider that item? It may be something that should, in fact, there was one, document that spoke about, it will be reviewed and see if there's some other process in place that it should go through first, for example. Outside of our meeting in this case. Is there a review board somewhere, or, you know, that type of thing, and staff would look at that and make sure that was the case. So that's about jurisdiction, and that's what appropriateness was, I think.
Yeah,
meaning.
that's kind of what I meant.
The only question I have is that why would it not be submitted just to streamline the process, have the request submitted to staff rather than to the president? Because sometimes, it's kind of hard you may not be able to get a hold of the president and the staff's always here.
The president is the governing officer of this corporation, and I think that
Well, the
it's
stand-
just like the
president will still
mayor is
approve
as
it.
well. The mayor also is the governing officer of the city council, and we're in charge of policy, you know, so why would the president not be, you know, look at
Well,
this?
the president can still approve it, but just to streamline the process, let staff do some of the initial review for completeness and that kind of stuff, and then get it to the president. That was, staff's always here.
I do like that, the
Yeah, all he's
staff
doing-
checks
I'm
for
not saying the
completeness.
president not
Okay, let's
approve
just
it,
do
just
one
do
at a
it to the
time here,
staff.
if you don't mind. Yeah, I see your point, and I would say that if it was submitted to staff, they would get it to me
Yeah.
in an appropriate period of time, so I don't have a problem with that,
It'd
as
just
far
be
as
a
that goes.
simpler process to let it go through staff to the president.
Well, it says to be submitted to the executive director.
Yeah, that's staff. however.
So I'm sure that he'd look at it to make sure that all of the components were in there.
Does that help with that for you? That was in the first line, I think, of
Well,
the,
it says you'll initiate the process by, which will be presented to the president for review, not to staff.
the paragraph below that is where it
All
needs to be
agenda
submitted.
items must be submitted to the executive director?
That paragraph should probably be before the president item.
Oh, okay.
Okay, all right, well, let's just move it
Okay,
up.
good, this is what
Yeah, just to
groupthink
kinda
is about,
streamline.
we'll get it right. Did you have anything to add, since you were jumping in there, I
No,
didn't mean
no,
to cut
it's,
you off?
you're good.
Anyone else over here? Drew, I think you already spoke, yes, would you like to
I
speak?
think I would add the part that's on the city council policies and procedures, that part that says, the city administrator will be responsible for administering the agenda process. If there was a way to add that to that sentence that we're gonna put above the president.
And we're speaking about the
Yeah.
city administrator,
All
not the-
agenda items must be submitted to the executive director,
and this
for
is-
placement on the agenda, so he can administer the agenda process. Somehow put that in there.
And are you using the term, city administrator,
The
or would that be
executive will be
replaced with the
responsible.
executive
Oh, okay, it is up there.
It's
Okay,
already
I'm sorry.
in
It's
here.
already in there.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Okay, that's
right.
good. Okay. Mhm.
Everyone here has spoken. Caleb, did you have anything else to add?
I've just got some language that I would add, but I can, are we gonna just ask this staff to get us some additional language, or want we just to submit that? for their
We're gonna go
consideration?
ahead
We're
and
gonna make a
vote on
decision now?
this,
Okay.
so if
So
you
I-
wanted
I
to, I
would-
mean, it will still be wordsmiths, they're gonna take notes and get
Okay.
it to the right form.
I would suggest, amending that sentence so that it says, and then approve or disapprove their inclusion based on completeness. And then I would say, and whether the issue is, one, ripe for consideration by the board, and two, within the jurisdiction of the board.
That's good language.
Can you
Okay.
say that one more time?
Whether the issue is, one, ripe for consideration by the board, and two, within the jurisdiction of the board. Or maybe within the jurisdiction of the EDC would be better.
Yes, Bert?
Also, are we still gonna, I don't see it in here, I missed it one before, but are we still gonna need two, directors to get an agenda item on the board? Is that part of this?
That's what's proposed at this time. If
Okay.
you wanna discuss that more, you
Except
may.
that there is a way to have one, which I think,
Well, I being a board
You would be
member,
the
I think that was the intent. It would still be two, but it can be
makes sense.
that, the president is the, other person.
I think two is fine. I mean, that's the way the
And
city
you can
council
choose
works.
what that person is.
I mean,
Yeah.
If you can't get another, director to, agree with that, I mean, you're, it's not gonna work anyway. We'd just be wasting our time.
But
That's
if
my
you're
opinion.
dealing directly with the president, why would you need another board member to,
I am
weigh
the
in
other
on it.
board member then.
That's what I say you
or-
are a board
Or
member.
whoever's
the
president.
president?
This is
Okay.
this is a policy
So
that
you
will be
almost don't
standing
even
for a
really
while.
need, option B, because you end up going to the president anyway.
No, not, and the reason you have to have option B is just in case you get a hostile president.
Okay.
That's why you have to have option B.
Understood, understood.
Okay. it's-
May I make one
Yes.
additional suggestion?
Mhm.
Between A and B, I think you should have a semicolon there and an or, rather
Okay.
than two.
Good
Oh,
idea,
okay.
yeah, good idea.
And, of course, there would be a numbering system because we have two A and Bs and you'll clean that up in the document.
I would imagine when y'all vote on this, that it would then be included in the bylaws.
Oh, okay. You think-
Can I say that I just don't think these need to be in the bylaws?
Okay, I mean, that's fine.
I think this should just be a policy, because the thing about the bylaws is it takes, you know what we're going through right now to change them. If we wanted to, for some reason, if this doesn't work out or we decide it's not, now we have to go and change the bylaws and go through the city council.
That's true.
I just don't think that's a good idea. I would think that this would just be a policy that we have in a little, folder for the EDC.
Okay. Down here, does anyone, if you wanna weigh in otherwise, let me know. And then, anybody else disagree? Okay. So we're talking about a policy here then, on this particular item.
Ms. President, Madam President, I move that we approve the EDC agenda requirements as discussed, as presented in this written document and with all of the amendments mentioned.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Keith. If there are no other questions or discussion, all in favor say aye. Oh, yes. Wait,
Before you
I'm
do
sorry.
that, I wanna make sure that we understand what the amendments are, so can
Okay,
I
would
review
you like
those
to
just really
reiterate?
quickly?
Certainly.
We're moving the third paragraph up before the paragraph that states the president. In that the second paragraph that says the president, we are basically saying the president will review agenda items and approve or disapprove their inclusion based on completeness and whether the issue is one, right for consideration by the board, and two, within the jurisdiction of the EDC, period. We are also placing a semicolon and an or between the last A and B. Those are the only changes I have.
Okay, and
Is that correct?
Yes.
everyone agrees
As
with
far
that?
as I
Yeah,
can tell.
that's what
Okay.
we did discuss, or you brought up some actual hard dates. We have the 2 and we have the 6. Is everything in there that we needed for the, do you think all those dates are appropriate? I mean, there isn't a specific number of days listed, but is
I
everything
put
the way?
in 6 working days prior to the desired EDC meeting date.
And you think that's all, written?
That's the
in-
same that we do
written
with the
as-
city
As
council.
you would need it?
Yeah,
Okay,
I think that's
okay.
fine.
All right, in that case, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed? That's unanimous approval of item number 5. Thank you, that was fairly painless. Gonna move on to item number 6. This item was actually the catalyst for item number 5, and I think we had a good discussion on that. I'm pleased that we had unanimous approval on coming together of the minds on how this should be done. I think it was needed, and in the light of this discussion, I have decided to pull this item for a couple of reasons. First, this request came to me in the 11th hour, actually less than 24 hours before the agenda packets were due to be delivered to the board. The submitter did not contact me in advance. No other board members were named on the request, and there was no justification or supporting information included in the request form. And second, this is related to a personnel issue, and as such, should be addressed by management first. Last meeting, the board unanimously approved the new management structure that we discussed last meeting. And with this, I've already seen some improvements and things are moving forward more efficiently. The board has spent a lot of time trying to improve our operational efficiency, and I don't want to get the cart before the horse. So that would only be a step backwards. Based on some of the input today, my plan is to meet with the executive director to discuss a workable policy, and we will bring back recommendations to the board for consideration probably next meeting. So, and having said that, and I wanted to say one more thing, I'm sorry. For any business folks in the audience, I want to thank, and everyone for that matter, thank you for the patience with us as we work through these internal policy issues. This is our second meeting to discuss these amendments to the EDC articles and bylaws, and it's been a good process, and we should finalize them today, I believe. So everyone should be encouraged. These are good changes, which in the end will help the EDC serve the entire community better. Thank you for your support. Okay, let's move on to item number 7.
I disagree with that. That item was put on the agenda with Bert and I's name both to be put on it.
It didn't come that way, sir. and it came late. I'm just saying from our discussion today that that's my decision. So let's move on to
It's on,
item.
I don't know that you have the right to pull it if we've requested it to be on there and want to discuss it.
And it is already on there.
It's already on the agenda, Artie.
I understand there was very short period of time, and after hearing the discussion today and after thinking it over, I have the right to pull the item.
I disagree. It's on the agenda. I want to discuss it. Bert wants to discuss it.
Do
The
we
whole
need
board,
an
the board
attorney
as a
opinion
whole
on
has
this?
wanted this to be done for a long time. We didn't agree in the first place, and it
Okay,
should not
hang
be
on,
on.
we're not discussing it yet, okay? The issue is that I think that everyone would agree that we have set down a process. We are going through this in depth on how we should proceed to be more efficient as a board. And by doing it the proper way, by taking it and discussing it with management, or just having something to present to the board, which is not available at this time, it would not be a good discussion without having that to look at and talk about. That's why I pulled the item.
I'd
We
like to ask the
certainly would-
executive director if he feels you have the right to pull this item once it's been put on the agenda.
I've pulled items before.
That's
were
not
on
what
the
I said. I
agenda.
want to ask the executive director if that is appropriate, or if it's it's on the agenda and we want to discuss it, we can go ahead and discuss it. You don't have the right to pull it once it's on there, when you get to the meeting to discuss it.
I believe the president has the ability to pull an item, but I also believe that the board as a whole, utilizing Robert's Rules of Order, can overrule her decision
By a
to pull
majority
an item.
vote, by a majority vote.
Okay.
Okay, well, then that's not just pulling. We got to take a vote on it, because some of the board objects to
You're
it.
pulling, you can vote on, we will need a motion to, override my decision, I guess you could say. I don't know.
Okay, I move to override the president's proposed action to remove this agenda item.
Second.
There's a second, okay. Any other discussion? You have some questions? Yes, sir.
Can I discuss a little bit? I think this is an issue that does need to be discussed. I think the board needs to take action that is in alignment with a prior resolution at the last meeting where we expressed support for the Helotes Chamber of Commerce and the HAMBA organization and the work that they do, and support. And I would just say that I personally believe that it's important for our EDC director to be involved with and supportive of those organizations. That said, I don't think that, I think this is something that we can move in that direction in a kind of organized, thoughtful manner. I don't think this is something that has to be decided today. But we can move forward and look at these things in the next meeting or two, so that again we work this out so that our EDC specialist is empowered to do what he or she needs to do to be involved with those organizations, because I think that's very important. So for what it's worth, that's my thoughts.
I have a comment.
We need to
let-
vote, we
let-
need to vote to discuss it.
I know the vote's there, but I have a comment. Would it be more appropriate to postpone this item rather than say pull it? And I understand the vote is up.
Oh, we haven't voted yet. We're voting on whether to allow this to be discussed today or not.
Right, my
So-
whole reason we want to discuss it today is to let the board
We
weigh
have a
in to
motion
staff with recommendations on if we want to do it or not, or how we want to do it,
Correct.
rather than having the president and staff prepare it and present it to the board. Let the board weigh in on whether they feel the EDC director should be able to be on the board, not an officer of the board, but be on the board of these two organizations, and then let staff prepare it that way.
What I'm saying is I don't think that it's a decision, I just don't think it's imperative that decision be made today. I would, I guess I'm kind of telling you how I'm probably gonna vote. I would probably side and, let's let the process as far as placing it on the agenda let's make sure that everyone is okay with that, so that what we end up with is a result that everyone feels like is a legitimate result. And rather than have this controversy over whether it should be on today's agenda item. I don't know who's right or wrong on that, but what's the harm, and let's make sure everybody's okay with it being on the agenda item at a future meeting, and then we vote accordingly and
Well,
move
if we
forward.
if the board weighed in on it today and we've got
We need to
Let-
vote.
a consensus
let's
of what we
let,
wanna do, it could be on the next agenda in the final format instead of having to have it on the next agenda and delay another month before we do it.
I think it's time for someone else to have a turn. Bert, do you wanna say anything?
Yeah, the reason I put this, this item, or tried to get it, put it on the agenda, however you wanna call it, is because we really didn't have a process in place, so I just tried this, okay? That's all I'm doing, and I really appreciate you putting it on here. Now, pulling it, I know, just like, Director Massey did, she brought some, what do you call it, information to pass around to us. We discussed it, and, that was not on the agenda item earlier. She brought it today. I have stuff here for today. So,
Well,
I mean, it's the same thing that Board Member Massey did. So, I mean,
That was information for an item that was discussed.
we're not discussing this item? If
We're
you wouldn't have pulled it?
We're discussing right now whether to allow discussion, per
Oh.
se.
Well, okay. Well, that's,
So that's what you would need to speak to,
I thought I just did.
having it done today.
Yes.
You obviously have supported that
Yes,
motion.
yes, I
Okay.
Chair.
have.
President, you have,
Yes.
if I may, you have a motion and a second on the floor as to whether you can discuss this item. I would recommend that y'all vote on that item and then
Okay,
proceed with
without
discussion.
discussing why we should vote on it or not, okay. All right. We'll call for the question then. All in favor of, your motion was to allow it?
To allow
All
discussion.
in favor of allowing the discussion today rather than postponing or some future time? All in favor of today, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
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 Okay, we will be postponing, we won't be looking at it today by the majority rule, correct?
Correct.
We had,
There were
Caleb,
4-3.
Cynthia, myself, and Drew.
there were 4 nays, so you will postpone this item or put it on a future agenda item.
Right, hopefully next meeting, if we're ready for that, we'll do it as timely as we can.
Don't get me wrong,
Yes.
I'm not against
Okay?
it.
Oh, yeah, no.
All right,
I just
thank you
don't wanna
very
do it
much.
today. I have a reason.
All right. Let's, move along here, let's see. I've lost my page again as usual.
Back to
Hold on
articles.
just a moment.
One number 7.
Okay, we're moving on to item number 7. This is discussion about, sorry, this is still not the right agenda, I'm sorry. Could someone hand me, I lost my agenda again. Thank you. Item number 8 is discussion,
7.
I'm sorry, item number 7 is discussion, direction, and/or appropriate action regarding amendments to the EDC Articles of Incorporation. If you have, there was a lot of paperwork involved, on both of these items, so, in order to make this go more smoothly, hopefully as smoothly as possible, I'd like to go through what was submitted to you in your packet. It should be in the same form that I have. There are no page numbers, but it's the one that has the red line. And, I think that the easiest way to do this is to go page by page. Some pages are going to be mostly cleanup, but, that's the way I have, organized mine. I can start with the things that I, noticed, and then we will, did we have a motion to discuss this item?
I move that we discuss, take action on item number 7 as written.
I'll
No
second it.
Okay. section 2.2 at the bottom of that page, there is a discussion about holding meetings the day of the week and the hour of the day. And, my thought was
Wait a
just.
second, where are you?
I'm sorry, we're looking at the red line copy?
On page, but is that on,
Do I
You
have
talking
the
about the
wrong-
articles?
are you talking about the articles of
Okay, I'm
incorporation?
sorry, I
Yeah,
pulled the wrong,
you-
oh,
you
sorry, I
jumped
pulled the
forward.
Wrong packet, I apologize.
That's all right.
Thought I had that one first.
You need it? Okay.
Well, since I made the motion, can I just really quick say that I didn't see anything that was incorrect in the articles of incorporation. Everything that we stated that we wanted in here, was put in correctly, and I have no qualms about, approving what has been redlined.
Okay, and
Me
you had
either.
the second?
Second.
Yeah, Drew had the second. Did you have any?
I have a question
Okay.
on the articles of, Article 10, Board of Directors, one time more. I would like to visit the part that says, a director shall not be a city official, city staff member, or a member of the city council. I think it would be wise to reconsider one more time having at least one voting member from the city council, notwithstanding the two folks that are in place at this time on our board. There's other folks that could be on the board and they may not have a conflict or anything else. That's my thoughts. I'd just like to look at it one more time.
Okay, Drew has brought up a question on that particular item. It's the fourth page of the articles, on Article 10. Would anyone like to discuss that particular item or add to that discussion?
Well, since Drew brought it up, I would agree, and my thinking again on that is simply that what if in the future we have somebody who's qualified, who's also a member of the city council, who wants to serve, who has the time to serve, and if there's a scarcity of other qualified people who have the time, ability, et cetera, to serve, I just think it's, not needed, not necessary to bind future boards. It's not that big a deal, I guess, but, I don't see the necessity. I don't think we need that language to deal with the fact that we may have some city council members on the current board who no longer think it's appropriate for them to serve. To me, those things are not mutually exclusive at all. I think you can have one without the other. We can not have the language and still deal with the situation that we currently have and not have city council members currently on the board.
Anyone else? Well, we'll just go around, give everybody a turn to weigh in.
The more I've thought about this, the more I'm actually more for not having city council people on here, and I've enjoyed being on here, but I started thinking about one thing. This council or this board is supposed to be able to fire, anyone as a director who's not doing their job or whatever. How difficult would it be to fire a city council member who's also a board member? I just think that the political ramifications of doing something like that. I mean, I know most people are apolitical, but those of us who are in the political arena, I see these things, and I just feel like, and the other thing is, okay, say we decide, okay, one person, who's it going to be? And I actually liked being on the board, and I wanted to stay on until the Linear Park project was done. But and I think one of the reasons we were in this little situation we got in is because we had two city council people at heads with each other. And if we had not been city council people, I think things would have been a little different. And again, it's a political thing. So I just think for that reason, it really is better to leave it as it is, not allow city council people. I do believe that we should have a good liaison, and we'll talk about that when we get to the bylaws. We do have a city council liaison. It has been Bert, but we need someone who is going to come to the meetings, who's objective, and who can just come and sit and listen and, report back to the city council. But notwithstanding, there's some good things for, one city council being, a person being on here. However, I think that just judging from everything that's happened in the last 5 or 6 months, a lot of the things that happened were because there was politics involved, and I think it's better for the city and for the EDC to keep the city council people off.
Sir, did you want to speak?
Yes, I agree with, Board Member Massey on that. And also, she brought up a point, at the last meeting about, the budget. You know, the EDC budget has to go to city council, and sometimes you might want a project, you know, as an EDC board member that you really, really want. But then it has to go to city council, and you really have to do what's right for all the citizens of Helotes. And it might be difficult to separate those two. And that's a point that you brought up last time that I've been thinking about, and the more I've thought about it, the more I agree with it.
Okay, we'll start down there. Any comments? You didn't get a chance to weigh in, Keith. I guess he's saying he doesn't have any more comments on that issue.
Well, I don't see the conflict, quite as much as y'all do as far as having a city council person on the board. I think it's been beneficial to us up to this point, to have that, whether or not that same thing could be done with a liaison or a non-voting member, I don't know. But I haven't seen a conflict with that, and I would support having a member on the board. I don't know how you'd go about selecting who that is. That's a very good question. I'd maybe pose that to you if you had an idea. If there was a board member from the city council, how would that person be selected? Appointed by the mayor, perhaps?
Absolutely.
It's appointed by the mayor, and then the city council would have to approve.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Can I?
Let's everybody have one turn first. I think, did you have anything else, Keith?
Well,
Drew?
the reason I think we've had liaisons before, sure, they're helpful, but a voting member and a member that brings knowledge of the city council to our board would be very, very beneficial, and he would overcome any of these things that you have brought up, any of you have brought up, negative. It would be a positive thing to have a person, whoever, on the board as a voting member.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, just to be clear, my position is that I don't think we need to say one member. I think the system as it is sufficient. I think this issue about the possible conflict of interest, frankly, that's kind of relevant to another issue that we might be discussing in the future. A person can serve on any position on a board and have the ability to abstain from particular votes that might present them with a conflict of interest. And so I don't think potential conflicts of course there's potential conflicts of interest with the city council member serving. There's potential conflicts of interest with me serving. If there's an issue that would affect my business, then I have a conflict of interest and I have a duty to abstain in that instance. And I would just remind the board that it wasn't very long ago. I don't know how long I've been on the board. I seem to figure that out, but I think it's only been a couple of years, maybe 3 years. But at that time, the board had trouble finding members, and so I just think we have to keep that in mind. I mean, if we need qualified people who are interested in and have the time and ability to serve, I just hate to tie our hands and say, absolutely, we cannot pull members from this particular area. But if I'm in the minority on that, I am. And
Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead. If
Well,
you
I
wanna
just
weigh
comment
in.
back on that is if we say, okay, we agree that it's okay to have city council members on the board, then should we put a number on that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, how many? What's the number? Back to you.
I just don't think that's an issue at this point. I would be in favor of simply not addressing that. I don't think it's an issue that needs to be addressed. I mean,
Well, just for argument's sake, what if 6 members of the EDC were on city council? Is that a problem?
I would say that
Yeah, it's a quorum.
I don't know that it's necessarily a problem. I would say that if the citizens have a problem with that, they can take that up with the city council and have new members replaced with non-council members. I mean, I just.
Well,
I've
so
had
if you
people
say that, then if the mayor can appoint people to the EDC board, then couldn't the mayor appoint the entire EDC board from city council members?
Well, let me just say this,
So then the
just
two
to-
bodies are identical.
let me just say that after looking at a lot of other, articles of incorporation, our current one has 4, I believe, allowed, if I recall.
I thought it was 3, but I don't know.
It's actually state law, our type.
Okay, okay, does this answer the
Is it
question?
4? It's 3, yeah, that's what I
3
thought.
are allowed to be council members by state law, is that correct?
If you had 4, you'd have a quorum of the council.
Okay, okay, then it was kind of,
There you go.
okay.
Yeah, you're right.
It's still, but it's still allowed, and I think that there are a lot of other EDC boards that do allow that many or more on their boards, according to the ones I've read. I also wanted to point out, to make this, perhaps move along, is that this is going to be a recommendation to city council. Obviously, they will be the ones making the deciding. So what we recommend is what we feel, and what they will, do, it will be in a discussion in their council meeting as to how this is. And this does affect them, so I think it is, something that we can recommend and see how they see it.
I'm not sure the argument, but I'd say,
Okay.
I don't think it affects them,
Okay,
because
well,
they don't have
potentially,
to serve on the, to me, it affects the EDC
correct.
much far more than it affects the city council. So I think that's the lens through which we need to look at this.
We have Bert who wants to jump in, if you're done, Caleb.
I am,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you. Just to tell everybody, that what I know of, I think we have 6 or 7 applicants at this time that wanna get on the EDC. So there's not a problem with bodies. So as far as, am I right or wrong?
That's good information. I actually spoke with the mayor yesterday and, reviewed
And-
those applications with him, and he was familiar with most of those people.
And-
Yes, sir.
I'm
you
sorry,
were-
I'm sorry.
I did.
And then also, like I said before, the last meeting, I think some new blood, different ideas, is wonderful. That's what we need. We need more participation on our boards and our commissions and stuff like that. I mean, let's give these people a chance. It's my opinion.
Can I respond just quickly?
Yes, one more.
And I just want to be clear, I'm not talking about right now. To me, this issue has nothing to do with the current makeup of the board. I'm not advocating that Cindy or the member, Director Massey or that Director Baj should serve on the EDC. That's not at all my thinking. What I'm saying is looking forward in the future. If right now we have 6 or 7 people who are interested, I think that's wonderful, and I think the idea of more community participation is a great thing. I'm talking about, I'm saying looking forward in the future, do we wanna make a decision now that in my opinion, needlessly binds us in the future? Anyway, that's all.
Just a quick thing, can everybody make sure that their microphones are on, please? Remember, we are on public access, so we just wanna make sure they can hear us.
Okay. I believe we are. Okay, let's go ahead, and we had a motion and a second, as to this item, as to what we would like to recommend to city council, about city council members being on our board, or the potential, or the option being left open for them to be on our board. Correct?
We just had a motion and a second to discuss the whole item.
Okay, sorry. Then let's have a motion for, I would entertain a motion on this item then.
I move to approve that portion of it, item 10 as written.
Second.
Okay, so, does anybody have any questions on that? If not, this is a vote as to what, to keep the item as written in the red line, in Article 10, which says that the director shall not be a city council official. So, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, we had 4, yes. Okay, so our recommendation to council will be that city council members can be included, and then they will make the decision on their policy on that. Okay, so that was, kind of an old item from last time. Is there anything else in here that anyone came up with that was redlined and you don't agree with it? Let's do that and tell us, the article number. Oh, and then the next thing after that will be, if you had an addition, and I happen to have one that I noted when I was reviewing this.
We're talking about the bylaws at this time.
No, we're talking about articles of incorporation
Okay,
here, and
excuse
then we
me.
will make, after we review it, we will make a final recommendation on the, on each, if there's some large item, otherwise we'll do it as a whole. We could do it separately if there's, needs discussion.
So what are we talking about?
Is there anything in the red line that you, anything other than the red line that you found you would like to change, and that needs changing amendment?
We're still in the articles?
Yes.
Thought we just approved it.
No.
I'm sorry, that was, on that particular portion. I want to give clear direction to staff so they know
Okay,
how to
gotcha.
do this, okay? If there is not anything in addition, hold on, I want each of you to have a moment, because this was a lot of paperwork.
President, can I
Yes.
say a few things?
Yes, please.
In looking at this, and talking with you and, Glenn yesterday, it appears that Article 8 amendment, should be and I'm not gonna go through each sentence here, but what I would recommend is that, the board of directors allow staff to amend Article 8 to not only talk about amending articles of incorporation, but amending the bylaws as well.
Okay.
Because there is no language in either document that specifically says how to amend the bylaws. It's assumed that we do it this way, okay? But I would strike, or excuse me, add language that says these articles of incorporation and bylaws may be amended at any time, and allow us to go through that paragraph and make those amendments just to include bylaws. The second change that I would recommend is under Article 9 address. I originally removed Marie Gellis's name and put in mine, but I would just strike my name as well and just put the registered agent at that address is the city administrator.
Okay.
And those are the only two comments that I have.
Okay, did anybody have anything else to submit? The only thing I had a question on, if no one else does, is, in Article, 10, D. I just had a question really first, is, you noted in the, last meeting about the executive director and the roles and such. Can you explain, the designee? That's always been language that was in there, but how does that work, or how would that work on the executive director or his designee?
My understanding of it is that the city administrator can designate whoever they wish if they don't wish to serve in the executive director capacity. Whether it be a staff member, a citizen, essentially it's not clear here, so it could be anybody.
And I would like to suggest that there might be some kind of approval process for that designee, that the board would have a chance to weigh in on that.
I would agree on that.
That'd be the city council's decision to weigh in on that.
That could very well be, but the board, I'm just saying that the board should have a, chance to weigh in on that as well, prior to final approval, if that's what's required. I don't know that city council doesn't have to weigh in on that, or can you tell me if they do, or would? I guess it's been in the it's been the language from the very beginning. Is there anything that says that city council would have to approve your designee? I think that this empowers you as.
You mean currently?
Well, as.
Currently, I don't think anybody has to approve the designee. It's whoever the city administrator would wish to appoint to that.
Okay.
I'm not opposed. I mean, I'm not opposed if y'all wanna have a say in
Like,
who
at
is the
least a vetting
executive director.
process or some kind of, if that was the,
No, I don't care.
if in the future, if someone the executive or city administrator chose to designate someone else, that it could be brought before the board.
Yeah, the only thing I would comment on the designation could not be unreasonably withheld. And what I mean by
Correct.
that is if whoever's in my position is so busy that they can't adequately, as the city grows, they can't adequately serve as the executive director as well, that they should be allowed to designate somebody in that position, and it shouldn't be unreasonably withheld to where they have to continue to serve in that capacity if it's gonna be detrimental to the EDC or to the city. Does that make sense? Because they can't
Right.
complete all the duties that they need to complete in that position. So that would be my only comment.
My other thought and concern for anytime this would be, an option down the road is, there isn't anything that really says what this person would be. Are they a paid person? Is it someone within within the staff? I mean, what is the scenario? Is it someone that the EDC has to hire and pay additional monies for? I mean, that sort of thing. This isn't really state that, and so that was one of my reasons for at least having,
I mean, that's correct, it's vague. It's,
okay.
there is no discussion of what a designee is it paid under?
Potentially, a decision by you or someone that in your position could mean that we would have to budget more money for that, which I guess you'd have to bring it to us in the budget, but.
Yeah, I mean, if
It's
you're
not a
wanting to
matter-
amend that to say that the designee has to be approved through the EDC Board of Directors, I'm fine with that.
Well, it would be, and my thinking is that it would be your recommendation, we wouldn't have to be necessarily a part of your selection process necessarily, but that it would at least be brought for, be kept in the loop somewhat on that. And I don't know the exact language, but, is anyone opposed to having that in addition?
Sounds good.
Okay,
So you would insert language that says the city administrator, comma, or his or her designee
As approved by the EDC.
who shall be approved by the EDC Board of Directors, comma, shall serve as the executive director of the corporation.
that all work for one. I'm not sure we need to, make a total motion on that unless you'd like to get that out of the way now, but we would include that in our final motion. Is that okay? All right. That's, I believe, the only thing, else, I had on that, so, would you like to clarify those changes again on what we will be voting for, and then I will, ask for a motion in a second.
Okay, the changes that I have in the document so far are to approve it as presented with the following changes. Article 8, amendment, add language in there, you're authorizing staff to add language in there that would include bylaws, the amendment of bylaws in addition to articles of incorporation. Article 9, address, you would remove Rick Schroeder and just say the street address of the initial registered office of the corporation is 12951 Bandera Road, and the name of its registered agent at that address is the city administrator.
Scratch the name, okay?
Article 10, the amendment will be second paragraph, or I guess under A, but last portion of that. A director shall not be a city official or city staff member, period, you're removing, or a member of the city council. Under Article 10, paragraph D, it would state, the city administrator, comma, or his or her designee, who shall be approved by the EDC Board of Directors, comma, shall serve as the executive director. And then it continues, and that is it.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve as stated?
I'll so move.
Okay, Drew, do I
I'll
have a
second that.
Okay, there are no other questions. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Approved unanimously. Thank you. That was fairly painless as well. Okay, let's move on to item number 8, the bylaws. It's, discussion, direction, and/or appropriate action regarding amendments to the EDC bylaws.
I move that we discuss and take action on item number 8 as written.
Second it.
Second by Drew.
The only thing that I have on this one is on the second page, basically. I would like to remove the time. We have Wednesday of every month at 1 p.m. And the other thing I wanted to, if we have to have a time, I would like to go back to 7 p.m. But otherwise, I would just leave it to the directors. The reason that I would like to change it back to 7 p.m. is because I think it opens the meeting up to more people. Also, it'll open it up to another liaison who could actually come. Because right now, the only two people who could come as a liaison from the city council are Bert and myself. All the others work during the day. And I think that we really need some fresh eyes to be the liaison. And so if the meeting is changed to 7 in the evening, the third Wednesday of the month, then again, that opens that part up, and it opens more people to coming to the thing. So, and it may actually open more people to be able to serve on the board.
Okay, Drew?
Could you entertain adding unless changed by the board? In other words, 7 o'clock unless changed by the board, or whatever proper words you'd like to have. In other words, it can be changed, without having to go back to the bylaws and change them.
Yeah, I just want it to be flexible, more flexible than,
Okay,
so.
If you don't mind, I have some suggested language to that. We would specify the day, the month, the day of the month, and that, and as to the time of the meeting. Another set of bylaws, says it this way: regular meetings of the board shall be held at such times as shall be designated from time to time by the board.
okay,
I'm in favor of that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay?
I think that's good.
So we're
That's
gonna.
actually, if I can, that's actually the way that it read before.
Oh,
So
seriously?
it used to say regular meetings of the board shall be held without the necessity of notice to directors at such times and places as shall be designated from time to time by the board.
So let's go back to the original language.
I mean, if that is the consensus, I would just say go back to the original language.
Okay, and I did have a question in the sense that there is no notice, and I when reading some of the other bylaws on this subject, it seemed like we needed notice. There should be notice on a regular meeting, but the language they use is that the notice is the agenda, which we have to post and all. So it's not a matter of no notice, they use the agenda as notice.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be a separate notice, like
Yeah, that's what this is referring to, a separate notice.
okay,
via
cause that
email
worried me at
posted,
first to say
something
we
that
need
you're having a
notice.
meeting.
Okay,
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 so we're
everybody clear
going
on that one? Okay. Okay, let's, Cindy, did you have something else on
Yeah,
that?
there was
or-
just a little typo on,
Can I ask a question about the time?
Certainly,
I'm a little confused. Are you saying we're going back to 7? I mean, if we approve this, we are suggesting to council that the meetings go back to the third
No.
Wednesday
This
at
is-
7 p.m.?
no, not to the council. The council doesn't need to know about that, but,
Well,
Well,
were these some
Would you
suggestions?
like to read it, please? Maybe that was better.
Yeah.
So we're suggesting that the wording for that sentence be as follows. Regular meetings of the board shall be held without the necessity of notice to directors at such times and places as shall be designated from time to time by the board.
no, I wanted to leave on the third Wednesday of every month.
Yes,
Why?
because it needs to be consistent. People need to.
Yeah.
It's, the way to me, the way we're doing it now, nobody knows when we're having our meetings. Everybody always thinks it's the third Wednesday at 7 o'clock still. It's still in the paper like that.
You need to have a
You need to
designated
have it-
time for
I mean,
this kind of meeting.
It has to be designated.
Yeah, I don't mind the last part leaving, but I definitely think we should have it the third Wednesday of every month.
Shouldn't the board be empowered to make exceptions or make
Okay.
changes to its meeting time? I mean, I
Well,
think
hey,
that's kind of.
you could call a special meeting.
Yeah, but we, just go back to the original language. We're doing it on the third Wednesday, we'll keep doing it on the third Wednesday. The reason we didn't do it, we moved it to 1 o'clock, is so some of the people on the board could attend because they couldn't attend at night.
But,
Yeah,
There's always that situation can arise and the board can decide what to do with it.
Right, he's agreeing with you, I believe. And, the point being that the language as it was doesn't mean that we're gonna change it, but from time to time, the board could, as a majority vote, decide to change that, and we have our options left open. We do have some time constraints, and I would like to get as much done as possible. Would it be, possible to
So are we
move
gonna,
on?
we're gonna go back to the original language and leave off Wednesday?
Okay,
I move that that's what we do. I move that we go back to the original language as just read by Rick.
Second.
okay. All in favor, let's call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No,
Okay,
Okay,
so we will leave it as
so
stated.
our section 2.2, that sentence will read, regular meetings of the board shall be held without the necessity of notice to directors at such times and places as shall be designated from time to time by the board.
And I think that the intent in the minutes or whatever, it needs to be communicated, that doesn't mean that there's an intention to change our meeting date as it has been for quite some time for a regular meeting. Just because the bylaws that way. Doesn't state it in the bylaws, but that doesn't mean we're going to change that date.
Okay, are we done with that one? The only other
Okay.
thing I have is there's a typo on, let's see, that was page 2, 3, 4. On page 5, under section 3.8 compensation, it just of is left off, should be officers who are members of the board. That's all.
Anything else?
Yeah, so,
Anybody have anything that's glaring to them?
yeah, on Article 4, Section E, the corporation may, with the approval of city council, contract with any qualified and appropriate person, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I may be wrong. I thought we had kind of voted that we wouldn't need the approval of the city council for every contract we enter into. Am I mistaken on that? I thought that we talked about that at the last meeting. So for example, when we hire a marketing company or, you know, whatever, I thought we had decided that we could do that on our own. That we wanted that to be the case in the bylaws.
I think that the current is that everything goes to city council. Well, generally contracts do, but yeah, if you were gonna have a contract to get a soda pop machine brought in for an event, that would be a little cumbersome to take to council, is what you're saying.
As things stand now, for example, when we contract with, you know, whatever, the company that was gonna do the marketing or, you know, some of the things that we've done in the past, all of that has been approved by the city
Has
council?
that required that, Rick? No?
No,
it is approved by, during the budget process.
that's correct.
Yeah.
The projects are approved during the budget process as long as they are specific projects. And so we internally take that as city council's approval, and so no further, contract approval is required. If it's a totally brand new project, then that would need to go to city council.
Okay, so I just think that Article 4.1E seems to be a departure from that. It seems to say otherwise. It seems to say that every contract on a contract by contract basis would have to be approved by the city council, and I don't think that was our
And I think that
intent.
was consensus last meeting that we didn't want it to drill down to every single individual contract. If you're saying that our current practice is covered in this sentence, we just wanna make sure that our current practice continues, I think, from what was said in the
No, I mean,
workshop.
I think adding, I was actually surprised when y'all included that in there.
Well,
I
I
but
think
it
the
was
with
read-
the approval of city council would mean that we would have to send every contract to council.
Yeah, I think it was our intent to not have that in there.
I think on this one, the more important part was the services contract. I think that was on this one, right?
Yes.
So I would I would maybe just start with "and administrative services contracts shall be executed annually," and leave off that whole first, I guess the first 2 sentences. I think that would take care of it.
okay, again, I wanna move forward as quickly as possible. Is there any objection to having that change made on the red line that we discussed to make it so that we don't have to take every single little contract we do, but it's done in the budget process as we've been doing currently, and not change that? That's the way it's gonna be for what we vote on as a final here in a moment, okay?
Okay.
Anything else, that anyone is,
3.6.
3.6 real quickly?
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, I
ahead.
wonder if it'd be appropriate for the executive director to add some words considering the annual performance rating of our EDC specialist and salary. Some comments about that.
I think perhaps that's addressed in the executive director, subject to corporation's annual budget.
Well, it's not clear enough to me.
No? Okay. I'm not sure I understand.
Well, I understand the process we've used in the past, and if that's the same one you want to use, where's it said so, it doesn't say so here. It doesn't say so anywhere in there.
There was unanimous approval for the document that was submitted last meeting for, and
Yeah,
this was-
I can go over that. Basically, I think you're referring to personnel matters.
Yes.
So what this document does is place all personnel decisions, as long as it's in accordance with the annual budget that's approved by this body, under the city administrator or the executive director's discretion. So no reviews, nothing of that sort would come back before the board, unless there was something that a majority of the board felt strongly about, and they would appeal that to city council. Is the way that this wording, and the way that I put in my original policy or memo to y'all was structured.
Yeah, that's exactly what you put in here.
Right, so it's based on, what was approved in the budget
Okay.
for monetary type things. Yeah, I
Understood.
What it does, in my opinion, what it does for the board is it removes personnel decisions from the board and places those under the authority of the executive director or city administrator, and it tries to remove y'all from that situation and have y'all just focus on policy and program decisions.
Well, I'm absolutely for that.
Okay. We have a time constraint of 2:45, I'll let you all know, so I'd like to be able to allow, a vote on this before that time. Is there any other questions, any other concerns?
I have one other,
Okay, quickly?
when the articles and the bylaws are completed by us and approved by the city council, I would like to recommend the implementation date to incorporate only item 3.6, and for the rest of it, to allow it to proceed as is until FY16, October 1. My reasoning is I'd like to leave the board intact before, I'd like to see us finish the year.
I think that we did address that in the board recommendation is gonna be that the city council members can remain. It'll be up to them whether they agree with us.
Well,
And that would be the continuity you're looking for.
okay,
that
because
correct?
there's no words in here now that says implementation date will be tomorrow, as approved.
It just says it's gonna go before council and that date is flexible, within the 60 days. It can be next meeting, it could be the meeting following,
Of course, the,
correct?
I mean, if this is completed today, there's no reason we wouldn't send it to council June 11th, next week.
Okay, does that work for you? As far as, I think what we're gonna talk about then in a minute about a continuity plan, but you're saying, is it really about the council members being on board?
yeah, it's
Okay.
about
So
finishing out the year.
I think we've already, stated that we don't see a problem with them staying on in particular, because of the way we presented it, and then it'll be up to council to decide.
Okay,
Does that sound fair?
if y'all are,
Well, you've stricken that from the language, so
Right,
unless
so
council
I think
says-
we're good to go.
But
It's
if the
just gonna
council,
become a council
if the
decision.
council decides to go ahead and put it back in,